We'll talk about the American Hockey League Providence Bruins clinching a playoff spot over the weekend, the future of Providence goaltending tandem Brandon Bussey and Michael DiPietro, and if the Calder Cup playoffs started today, who would the first round opponent against the Boston Bruins top minor pro affiliate be? All this and more coming up on the Providence Hockey Report, Episode 4, in partnership with the Cyclone Sports Podcast Network. Kenny, you ready to get after it, bud?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, welcome back to the Providence Hockey Report podcast. I'm your host, Mark Allred, and the gentleman joining me over here is Mr. Kenny Comiskey. Kenny, how's it going? And thanks for getting back here talking AHL Bruins, bud.
Yeah, it's going well. Providence finally clinched, which is a big thing, and I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's just been absolutely crazy with everything else that's going on with the Boston Bruins. Absolutely like cannonballing down the Eastern Conference in the National Hockey League. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on, a lot of news that's being generated out of the unfortunate times. But I thought it was important to get this program back up and running. I know it's late in the season, but hey, the NHL Bruins aren't going to the playoffs. The Providence Bruins are. And we have some things that we want to talk about. As you can see, we have a sidebar agenda right there that we're going to talk throughout this program. But before we get to the meat and potatoes of our show's agenda, please subscribe to our popular listening platforms such as Apple Podcasts and Spotify Podcasts, and kindly give us a 5-star rating and a written review. And for the video version of this program, we ask that you subscribe to our official Black and Gold Productions YouTube channel to get access to Providence Bruins video highlights that we'll provide here, courtesy of our partnership with Flow Hockey. And we're allowed to use a certain amount of seconds to talk about how the Providence Bruins are doing and so on, but also give a little bit of a video for the YouTube viewers to check out as well to see how these players are doing. So why don't we just jump right into it, Mr. Kenny, and we'll start off with how we got here. So what I wanted to do about this segment is just kind of get an overall discussion about our experience, because we literally have watched every Providence Bruins game this year. And if we had an emergency or something to do, we've been able to go back in the archives and watch it again. And Kenny, you provide Boston Bruins fans, Providence Bruins fans, Maine Mariners fans, knowledge and expertise when it comes to video and providing highlights for fans to enjoy, and also which we can use here, and we are today. So, just to get going, I mean, Providence Bruins pretty much started like the Boston Bruins did this season, really rocky road, and you know, I was kind of okay with it, because that's kind of how the tradition has been in the American Hockey League. Is the beginning of each season is always kind of a rough start, because your roster is in turmoil from up and down movement and so on. So it's hard to get adjusted. But I think that traditionally in the American Hockey League, a lot of teams, they get to like the the mid-December, late January to really pick up their efforts and start making a really Calder Cup push. And I had a feeling the Providence Bruins were going to do that again this year because they have so many times in the past. And they were like really low in the Atlantic Division, like seventh, eighth, but towards that period we talked about, the calendar turn, they started climbing to get up to as of right now they're fourth place. So I think that they've done really good with what they've had. There's not a lot of elite prospects down in Providence, and that. And then we're not going to trash on drafting or anything like that about how the Boston Bruins do things, but it is what it is in these situations, and these are the cards that are dealt to the Providence Bruins coaching staff of Ryan Mougenel, Matt Thomas, and Trent Midfield, and I believe they've done a decent job getting the team to turn around, kind of play for each other. You know what I mean? It's a mixed group of veterans and a lot of young players. So, and they're playing for each other, and this is going to be their 10th time they've gotten to the Calder Cup postseason. So, Kenny, let's get your thoughts on the year this far.
Yeah, I mean, I have the lineup card from that first game against Laval, and just looking at the difference between the players that we had then and now is incredible, really. Seeing guys play minutes that they probably shouldn't for their first year. You see Jackson Edward, top 4 defenseman. And even then, Tyler Pitlick, not even a part of the team yet. And the AHL rosters and stuff like that, it's always difficult because you're trying to balance the prospects with having that veteran leadership, having a guy like Lysell sit across from a guy like Brown. And I think they've done just a fantastic job throughout the season. Obviously, the beginning of the season was rough, but that could also be just guys trying to mesh and gel and stuff like that. And at the beginning of the season, Brandon Bussey had a rough start, to say the least. I think he went 0-4-1 for his first 5 starts. DiPietro picked up the slack and played very well, but having both goalies now playing at their best, and even knowing what's on the horizon right now, knowing that you're going to get Letary, Brown, Mitchell, Lysell, Callahan, and maybe even Husnudinov back for the AHL playoffs is huge. Right now, Providence got struck with the injury bug. Guys are starting to come back. Guys like Farinacci, Gaudette's back, and DiPietro was just at practice. He's probably not going to play this weekend. But I'd rather it hit us now than in the playoffs. So having all of this working towards us, and also we're not actively rooting for Providence to lose, but we talk about it all the time, how maybe the top 2 and getting that bye isn't the best thing for the team. So I'm very comfortable with where the team is right now. Obviously, they have a huge cushion on Lehigh Valley, who is next in the standings. It's going to be interesting to see how Lehigh Valley and Springfield kind of battle it out, because I would rather play Lehigh Valley. Springfield we don't really match up great against Springfield, but yeah, just a roller coaster of a season, and I'm glad that it's going to continue to go.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great experience for these players, and regardless of what you think about the not you, but everybody in general. I know that there's a lot of people out there, Kenny, that really want to see a lot of these players that are on this team right now up in the NHL, because the NHL doesn't have anything to offer this season, as in for postseason hopes. And there's a narrative out there that these players should deserve some of these games to get under their belt and so on. And while I do understand that narrative of getting these guys in, giving them a taste, fighting for something over the off season, there's a flip side to that coin as well. Is you don't want to, in my opinion, I don't want to see any of these guys come up like Patra, Minton, and so on, until possibly the very end. Get Brandon Bussey a game or so on, and maybe DiPietro for what they've done down in Providence, because they've really backboned this season. Especially DiPietro. Is to give those opportunities then, and not now when I know there's nothing to fight for. But I just kind of have a bad taste in my mouth when I think about they're losing, and whether you want to call it tanking or not, I don't want to see any of our prospects get exposed to any of that, because I think that might set their development or their further development into kind of, I don't know, kind of like a purgatory, if you want to ask it, I just don't think it's the right situation for them, but they are in a great opportunity. They do have a great opportunity to get in the Calder Cup postseason and actually do something this year. So, there's both can be true, I guess. You know what I'm saying? So, and I do understand that there's such a clamor for getting these players up to see, but also don't be so cheap. Get that AHL, get that Flow Hockey package and watch some of these games. I know the quality isn't great, but that's going to get better. I'm hoping. But yeah, overall, just to wrap up on the season, it's been a lot of fun. I know you've gotten some media credentials opportunities. I haven't been to many this year. I am gonna go to a couple more and hopefully some playoff games as well. I'm actually going to. I'm covering the April 12th game Saturday night, so that's going to be a lot of fun. I'll be down in Providence on Friday night to rip it up the night before, and then to get some work done on Saturday night at the Amp. But as of right now, the Providence Bruins, they are 36-22, 4-3 after 65 games played and 79 points. Good enough for fourth in the division. And they have 7 games remaining and trail division leading Hershey Bears by 6 points. At home this season, they're 28-3-1. Away, they're 16-14, 1-2. Then in their last 10, they're 4-5-0-1. And one thing that I was really, really surprised about was the turnaround of the special teams, both of them, because we've seen the numbers. They were like 30, 31, 32, 29 for a long stretch of time. And I'm just like, in late November, I'm like, if this power play and penalty kill doesn't get straightened out, there's no chance they're going to keep the streak of Calder Cup playoff appearances going. But thankfully, that really turned around too, to shoot the power play up to 7th right now, and the penalty kill 4th in the league, and that's really impressive. I don't know what to say about that, because it's amazing in itself. And versus the Atlantic Division, Providence is 27-15, 1-2, and then to their counterparts over in the North Division, 9-7, 3-1. So. Good turnaround, but hopefully things continue to move forward for this team and success, even though that their roster has been, pretty much ripped apart. We'll talk about that in the transaction sections. But why don't we talk about the weekend games that happened last week, and one of the games particularly that clinched a postseason berth. So why don't we go to on Saturday, March 29th, 2025, the Providence Bruins were at home at the Amica Mutual Pavilion to host the Atlantic Division rival Hartford Wolfpack. Another weird thing that's been happening a lot lately that I wanted to get your opinion on after we talk about this game is letting the opponent score early within a minute and really set the tone. And it happened again. Hartford's Belize scored at the 19:08 mark of the first period, assisted by former friend Anton Bleed and Robertson. And then to tie the game in the third period, that's when the offense really started to pick up for the Providence Bruins. Was really late in the game, coming in from behind to get this first victory of the season and to clinch a playoff berth. Was Tyler Pitlick. He scored his 18th at the 2:05 mark of the final period, assisted by forward Jeffrey Viel and defenseman Frederick Brunet. And to top it all off and to get the win, the 2-1 victory in the third at the 14:54 mark was Jackson Nelson scoring his second from Riley Tufte and new defenseman Ty Gallagher. Thoughts on this game where obviously we got to clinch playoff clinching 1 point that we needed against the team. But thoughts in this game, Kenny?
My thoughts going into the game where I cannot believe that we still haven't clinched. But the Bruins played 3 games where they were unfortunately unable to clinch. Brandon Bussi gets his 3rd start of the week, which is highly unusual. Obviously, DiPietro injured, so he's usually the one game per week guy. Now he's getting thrown into 4 in a week, which is tough, but he battled through it and he played well. Yeah, I mean, the first goal, it's tough, and I know it's a little bit more difficult now with the leadership being up in Boston, and they're just trying to find people. They're throwing A's on basically anybody who's been there for more than a year. You see Brunet, Merkulov getting A's. The 3rd period, they woke up. Tyler Pitlick makes a nice move, cuts to the middle. Dylan Grant, a great goalie who's been tough for the Providence Bruins this season. He's difficult to beat, but once they finally beat him, Jackson Nelson scoring his 2nd of the season. Looks like he's getting hot at the right time as well. With all the injuries, I think that it's been good for those players like Kuntar, Duran getting first-line minutes, and the guys really stepped up. Guys like Joey Abate as well. They stepped up into that role and they played well. And this is a great look for next season when hopefully the team kind of thins out a little bit to give some of these prospects some breathing room. But yeah, they finally got the win, and I was so happy. I was watching the Bruins game as well. Didn't care that they lost to Detroit for their 6th or 7th straight loss, but I think this is finally a good place where now they can kind of allow guys to start to rest and allow those guys to sort of get healed up. I feel like there was obviously some pressure not making the playoffs yet. I think everybody knew that they were going to clinch. I mean, it's going to be difficult for a team like Hartford to come back from all those points. But now that they finally had it done, I was shocked to see Bussi start Sunday, but they ended up going with him. But just a great win overall.
Yeah, and previously we didn't really tee up these games, but they had 2 games that they went down to finish an 8-game road trip. They went down to Charlotte, down to Bojangles Arena on a Tuesday and Wednesday. And that's when I kind of thought that they would get something out of those 2 games down there to clinch, but we had to wait until this Saturday game. Because I'm really not good at being a host, and it's been a while, I forgot to tee up the goal highlights, courtesy of Flow Hockey. So here's the Tyler Pitlick goal, his 18th at the 2:05 mark of the 3rd period.
Brunet in front of the benches, tapped in by VL, over to Tyler Pitlick. Pitlick walks all the way down, and he scores! Tyler Pitlick has even this game at 1.
Yeah, Pitlick's been really good. In that video, courtesy of Flow Hockey, in case I didn't mention it, Pitlick's been really good veteran for the team. Coming in on a PTO and working his way up. Even though I'm kind of controversial on the whole thing about his incoming and giving higher-end prospects more time, there is a winning factor that you still have to have down in the developing depths. You want to develop your prospects, but you want to create a winning environment, and guys like Pitlick do provide a valued asset of leadership and on ice, play, because he's been around a while. He knows all the situations and so on, and what's expected of a solid pro. The next one was the Jackson Nelson goal, and we'll tee that up here. And this video is courtesy of Flow Hockey, and this is Jackson's 2nd goal of the season at the 14:54 mark of the 3rd period this past Saturday night.
Escapes. Nice work, smooth skating by 24 in gold. A hard hit by Tufte out front. Nelson scores! What a play by Tufte to feed it out front to Nelson. He gets his 2nd goal of the year. The Bruins take a 2-1 lead.
Austin Rook right on top of that call. The Providence Bruins play-by-play on Flow Hockey. Riley Tufte just having a really good campaign down in the American Hockey League, helping these guys out as a bigger forward, and provides a nice pair of hands. If we've seen shoveling the puck to in the slot right to Jackson, who seems to be very comfortable scoring goals from there.
Yeah, and I mean, the quality, as you can see with the cameras and stuff like that, isn't great. But Austin Rook and Brett Chops bring the energy every night. I'll tell you that. So it's definitely worth the Flow Hockey subscription. I don't know if you're going to talk about this later, but our very own Sam Smith is going to be on the call. I think April 19th against the Bridgeport Islanders. Last game of the season, he's going to be there with Austin Rook calling the final game. So congratulations to him. Yeah, what a great opportunity for him. But what a goal for Jackson Nelson. Talk about making the most of your opportunities here. I said it earlier in the season where, he's not getting, the minutes that I think he should be. And it was just difficult for him to score when you're playing one game a week. And he's finally just finding the back of the net. I'm sure it's going to be a huge monkey off his back. I had to double check when he scored that first one. I'm like, damn, this is really his first goal of the season. I feel like he's always getting scoring chances, just could not bury, but finally does it. Good for him. And Providence clinches, so that's all that matters.
That's it. Brandon Bussey gets the win in this game, stopping 28 of 29. The power play wasn't good this game. They were 0 for 3. Both teams' power play was just not very good at all. But nonetheless, it's a Hartford Providence matchup, which is always going to bring, physicality, hard hitting, and a grind out hockey. But moving on to the next game that was on Sunday, March 30th, 2025. This was at home again at the Amica Mutual Pavilion in downtown Providence, Rhode Island. I've said it before. Well, it wasn't the first minute this time, but it was the first period. McEachran from Springfield at the 13-12 mark gets his 12th goal to start the offense for both teams. In the first period, 5 minutes later, Tyler Pitlick scores his 19th, which went unassisted. And we'll give you that goal highlight now, courtesy of Flow Hockey.
They've done a nice job of getting their shots through, and there's another one. That one's blocked. Pitlick might have a step. Here comes Tyler Pitlick. Scores!
Just a nice stride to break away from the back checker, and just the intelligence to be not close enough and not far away enough just to snap one right by the goaltender, who just seemingly was not prepared for it. Tyler Pitlick with his 19th of the season. Moving on to the next goal for the Providence Bruins, which would be ultimately the last one that they scored. This is the third period at the 7:16 mark. Matt Poitras scores his 14th from Georgi Merkulov on the power play, courtesy of Flow Hockey.
Into the corner, Wahlstrom will rim one around. Merkulov waiting for it there, sends it right back, looking for Wahlstrom. Onto the second, Merkulov, clean shot away. Poitras scores! 2-1 Providence.
And Matty Poitras getting on the board there in that game. And that'll do it on the Sunday afternoon contest at the AMP. Providence loses 3-2 to the Springfield Thunderbirds. And Providence outshot Springfield 37-29. Normally in these last string of games, Providence has been severely outshot, if I'm not mistaken, and somewhat of a concern, but not that bad. The power play, they scored, and they were 1 for 2. And Brandon Bussey took the loss on this one, stopping 26 of 29. Thoughts in this game? If there's any positivity to a loss, Kenny?
Yeah, well, first, Tyler Pitlick, beautiful goal. I know it's difficult when the shot kind of goes off the shin pads there. You have no idea where that puck is. So for him to have that awareness and pick it up in stride, and like you said, having players kind of bearing down on him, but him still having that feel and that awareness to step in and get a good shot on goal, that's perfect. And then we talked about the power play. They finally break through. Georgi Merkulov with a nice shot on goal. Poitras there for the rebound. Poitras's been very good this week. Not so great, but he's still producing points, which is fine. And yeah, this was definitely a tough one. I think it's a product of playing 4 games in a week, which I think is the first time that's happened this season. Coming off that 8-game road trip, going to Charlotte, and then coming back up to Providence. I mean, it's so difficult. Just 2 goals in the last minute there. Nikita Alexandrov just willing his team to the win there. I couldn't even believe it. I was so numb when it happened. I was like, this didn't just happen. And it's Springfield, and they're not a team that I really I want in the playoffs. I'd rather have a team like Hartford, because we match up much better against Hartford this season as well. But good for them. Good for Springfield for not giving up. They played it until the final buzzer, and they ended up coming out with a win. So can't be too upset. Obviously, there was some tough circumstances for the Providence Bruins, but you still got to figure out a way to win that game. You're up 2-1 with 2 minutes left, and like I said, I just think it's just, tired from just playing so many games in a week. Brandon Bussey playing 4 games, starting 4 games in a week as well. And not that any of those goals were his fault. He did a great job that game as well. I don't even know what to say. I'm just still in shock that they found a way to lose that game.
Yeah. No, I mean, a 1 goal, that what do they say about a 1 goal game? There's some saying out there that I was almost ready to throw it out there, but I just couldn't babble it out. It's never safe. It's something to do with never being safe. And this is a perfect example. Alexandrov, a minute apart, about a minute apart, at the 18:36 mark, and then the 3-2 goal was at the 19:42 mark. So yeah, just around a minute. And by that time it's way too late. You took the foot off the gas way too early. Let these guys expose you. And unfortunately, Brendan Bussey gets beat and takes the loss in this one. But again, it's not an overall bad weekend. You do get the win on Saturday to secure that playoff spot. And there's 7 games remaining. And we'll talk about the upcoming weekend as well and what to expect. But let's go to the transactions this week. And there was a boatload of them. Lot of action on the transaction wire. So, Kenny, why don't you take the reins here and kind of talk us through what went on in the past couple of days, what it seemed.
Yeah, it has been a busy week for the Providence Bruins. I'm just going to list them off, and then we can go through after. ATOs, the amateur tryout agreements, these are the guys coming from college. They're not going to obviously sign a contract to play 7 games and then the playoffs, so they're on that amateur tryout. Jake Schmaltz out of the University of North Dakota, Ty Gallagher out of Colorado College, Dan Zlach-Mellis out of UMass Amherst, and now, new today, Dalton Bancroft also played in the NCAA tournament for Cornell. And then we obviously still have the call-ups to Boston. Fabian Lysell, Michael Callahan, Vinny Lettieri, Patrick Brown, and Jeffrey VL was added this week as well. Ian Mitchell also a part of that list. Call-ups to Providence, Nolan Meyer, I think it's Meyer. Nolan Meyer, the goalie. Tough circumstances for DiPietro, but he has not started since he's gotten called up. Would love to see him get a game. And Jackson Edward sent down to Maine, got thrown out of the game in the second period yesterday. So good for him, I guess. Drop the gloves, try to make something happen. I'm sure he's going to be called up once the season's over in Maine because they're not going to be in the playoffs. But let's go through whoever you want to talk about on this list here, because there's definitely a few names that are intriguing.
Yeah, so Ty Gallagher, defenseman, Bruins prospect, and he came on earlier. I thought he's looked really good. Goal in his first game, but it's an adjustment period for him. But I think that he's going to get so much better. Really good things coming out of Mark Diver on Twitter about some of the people that he's been talking to about Ty Gallagher, and what does that tell you when you leave Boston University, when you were originally there for a year or two, and then you transfer to Colorado College, right?
Yeah.
And then you have an explosive year like you just did. How many goals did he have?
I don't know the exact number, but he was second on the team in scoring as a defenseman. So that's pretty damn good.
Yeah. And Diver said something about he was well coached. So that's just an inspiration right there to move forward and take that to the next level of development, which is pro hockey at the American Hockey League level. So, and Dan's Los Melis, what can you say about him and his talent? Really good to see him locked up and going to be possibly in the lineup for tomorrow night's game. I'm not totally sure. I haven't seen any lineup information as of yet, but if he is, it's going to be really exciting to see him. The one I'm really intrigued about coming out of college is this Dalton Bancroft, because the fact is that there's a lot of people out there that kind of are gravitating their comparisons. Now, it's just a comparison. It's not, it's not an even match here, but they're saying a player like, oh my God, Tom Wilson from the Washington Capitals. Just a big, burly guy that, can be a presence on the ice as of right now. We don't really know what's happening because, he's just coming out of college. I'm really intrigued on how this player is going to come out and react to having the cage off and all that aggressiveness in pro hockey. But yeah, I mean, if they're comparing him to a guy like Tom Wilson, you got to like that.
Yeah, that adds a lot to the lineup. I mean, going back to guys like Jake Schmaltz, I've heard some great things about him as well. Definitely great on the faceoff dot. He won a lot of faceoffs in his first game with Providence. He's a guy that I could see, if he plays well, he could be on the fourth line of Boston once John Beecher maybe leaves. I think he's a more well-rounded than Beecher is, and I think the one knock on Schmaltz's game is that he's not a great goal scorer, but neither is Beecher. So this will be interesting to see as the time progresses. Ty Gallagher does not look out of place one bit. You notice a few mistakes here and there, but he definitely looks like an AHL guy. He's going to be really good. He's been playing top 4 minutes here in Providence, so good for him. I mean, 7th round pick, 2 7th-round picks. Talk about a return on investment. I know it's very hot topic to kind of crap on Don Sweeney's drafting, but 2 7th-round picks signing with Providence. You rarely see that, especially at once. Dan Zlotch-Melis, I mean, watching him in the NCAA tournament was fun, to say the least. He was the main assist on the game-winning goal over Minnesota in that game, which was wild. I saw Mark Divers tweet where he texted Coach Mujanel. He was like, is Lachmelis coming to practice today? And Mujanel texts back, he's already here. And don't you just love to see that out of a guy who's coming and playing in his first professional hockey experience? It's great when a guy loves hockey that much and just huge. I heard he decided to move to the professional ranks to kind of better himself and improve his game. He thought it would be better for him for when he goes to the Olympics and represents Latvia. And then lastly, Dalton Bancroft played alongside other Bruins prospect, Ryan Walsh. Both were 1 and 2 on the team this year.
Another one who had a big year.
Yeah. Obviously, head coach Mike Schaefer will not be there next year, so I'm not too shocked to see Bancroft make the jump. But yeah, excited. He said his favorite player is Tom Wilson as well. So he says he likes to kind of model his game after Tom Wilson. He says, I don't know. I haven't been able to drop the gloves yet, but we'll see. Don't you just love to hear that out of a Boston Bruin as well? Bring some of that grit back. And all of these guys just kind of add to the lineup. I mean, they all play their role. It's a role that the team could use going forward. It's something that will be interesting to see what Coach Mujanel does with all the players coming back down for the AHL playoffs, see who's going to slot in, who's going to actually play. And other than that, I think everything else is good. All the players called up, and Nolan Meyer getting called up as well to Providence. Jackson Edward getting sent down. Yeah, what a week for transactions here. If you're on the AHL transaction list, you're definitely seeing a lot of updates for sure.
Yeah, and the call-ups to Boston, more or less, I just want to. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're pretty good damn players that helped out this Providence Bruins team. But to have them up in Boston shows how much perseverance this team has and how much the next man up mentality has really stuck in and been engraved into their mission of getting, not only getting into the playoffs in a position to do so, but also make some waves. Because the last 2 seasons we've talked about it, and I've harped on it so much that, and I'm not one for tanking like so many are at the NHL level right now, Bruins fans, but I just really did not want to see the Providence Bruins in a 1-2 slot in the Atlantic Division going into the postseason. Just for the fact is that there was almost 2 weeks off without game action, 12 days off on a bye week, and I just, for 2 straight years they seemed like they were practicing hard and getting ready, but not having that game action really bit them in the ass 2 years in a row against, guess who?
Hartford.
The Hartford Wolfpack.
Yep.
You know, who were just that much more prepared to come in and fresh. You know, I mean, they were only 2 or 3 days out from meeting the Wolfpack in the second round when Providence was almost 2 weeks without a game. So I just do not like this freaking this playoff format in the American Hockey League. Like, the first round's a best of 3. The second round's a best of 5, and then it's best of 5, and then it's, you know, it's just ridiculous. I don't understand it at all, but I don't know, who knows? I mean, the Providence Bruins are in. The transactions are set, and those guys that are called up to Boston are sure to come back. Now, I do want to correct you on one thing, though, Kenny, and I'm not sure if you actually knew this or saw some of the news on Twitter or anything like that, but Hustadinov is ineligible for the American Hockey League without waivers.
I did see that. Just with his play of recently, I don't know. I mean, you could send him down on waivers, see what happens. I don't know if he's going to get picked up, especially that late in the season. I don't know who's going to need him, but it's just something that I mentioned because he is AHL playoff eligible. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So, I mean, just to have him would be a huge asset too, because I mean, we've seen his speed and so on. I wish Hustadinov was just more consistent. Like, when he came to the Bruins, it was really nice to see, but then maybe seeing and playing around the surroundings that he was with kind of brought him down a level a little bit, and, you know, he kind of leveled off. So, yeah, I mean, if he can make it down without getting claimed, that'd be a huge asset down in Providence to go for, you know, their second Calder Cup.
Yeah, and like you said, it's going to be interesting. And with the 2 weeks, like, I don't know if that would help or it'll hurt, or especially with a ton of guys coming back down and trying to reintegrate those guys into a lineup that's already been kind of gelling. It's going to be interesting to see, because all the players in Boston right now are obviously going to be in the lineup one way or another, right? I don't see a world where Patrick Brown or Vinny Lettieri or Ian Mitchell or Michael Callahan or Fabian Lysell aren't going to be in the lineup game one. So it's going to be interesting to see who kind of pairs together well, and who Coach Mougenel is going to decide who's going to stay, who's going to bounce out. And I wonder if he's kind of planning for that already. With, you kind of see Merkulov and Patra, who've been playing together most of the season, and then they kind of just rotate a guy through, maybe just holding that place for a guy like Vinny Lettieri, who would obviously complement that first line well, as he did before. So just interesting to see.
Yeah, we'll talk about the playoffs coming up later on. I do want to touch on some of these new guys and where they might fit in that whole situation. But remind me if I forget, okay?
Yep.
All right, moving on to another topic that we wanted to discuss is the future of the Providence Bruins goaltenders. The tandem right now is probably one of the better tandems in the American Hockey League. And Michael DiPietro, regardless if he's injured right now, is absolutely leading the way, having a monster year for Providence. And there was a program on Flow Hockey that was recently aired that I saw, and I wish I could give her credit, because it was a really nice video, an interview with Michael DiPietro about some of the things that he was going through, mentally, physically, how his whole stay in Vancouver was before coming to the Boston Bruins organization and starting up from the coast up to where he is in the A right now. I thought it was a really, really good video. And if you haven't seen it, just to do a search for Michael DiPietro on Flow Hockey. And if I'm not mistaken, it's on their YouTube channel, so you can see it for free. Go check it out. It was really good. I mean, DiPietro talks about his work ethic, a lot of stuff that's been going on in his life and so on, about where he's at in his development, how his development took a little bit of a step back, and how he's trying to get back up to, a pro style that's noticeable, not only at the Boston Bruins level in management, but also other teams around the league that are going to need goaltenders pretty soon. And unfortunately, it sucks because you get to know these players and follow them and so on. But both of them, Michael DiPietro and Brandon Bussi, are both unrestricted free agents at the end of this year. And that's going to set up a different predicament when it comes to the 25-26 campaign and who's going to be in net, because what happened, I mean, everything happens for a reason. You have to give to get, and sometimes you have to take to get what you want. And the Boston Bruins, in my opinion, and not disrespecting this organization or anything like that, but kind of blindsided Brandon Bussi, in my opinion, because Brandon had a really good year last year. And he's been developing pretty well, in my opinion. And if the trade for Korpisalo, or I'm sorry, if the trade for Linus Ullmark didn't happen, I'm messing this up. Oh. So I believe he got blindsided a little bit with the Ullmark trade that brought on Joonas Korpisalo at a retained salary. I think it blindsided Bussi, to be honest with you, because the year that he was having, I really thought that it was going to be Jeremy Swayman gets locked up for the 8 years that he eventually did. It took a while to get there, but he eventually did. And then it was going to be a very cap-friendly Brandon Bussi to be his backup, who I believed could do it. If you're going to give Jeremy Swayman 60 games per se, then, Brandon Bussi is able to get up there in the National Hockey League and play a good 30 games, in my opinion. Maybe less, maybe give Swayman more because you're the starter and so on. But that cap number gives him flexibility to move that money and put it elsewhere where you need it to fix holes, and it's not in the crease. By bringing on Korpisalo, now you're bringing on $3 million, regardless if it was retained or not. Bring on $3 million of salary. Now you pretty much blocked your developing core in the crease from forward advancement, because right now we can't do anything with Korpisalo. I mean, Korpisalo's value might go up during this offseason, but I honestly don't think another team out there is going to want to take a chance on him. So the Bruins might be stuck with Korpisalo and Swayman, which isn't a bad thing, but it's not a great thing either. But what are you going to do? What are Michael DiPietro and Brandon Bussi looking at forward? Like, when they're in their contract negotiations, to me, it's very hard to look at that and say, well, if I sign a year, where am I going to be? I'm going to be in Providence again, which is not a bad thing. It's a great city. It's a great organization and so on. But maybe that year could be more beneficial to me elsewhere with a better path to the National Hockey League. And sometimes that makes me wonder. You put the human factor in there and so on. I mean, Brandon's been working his ass off to get to this point, and I kind of thought that was not a good shot, to be knocked down like that when Korpisalo comes in, when you were pretty much like not a shoe-in, but you still have to earn your opportunity, but kind of the next guy to go in and say, hey, this is yours, and run with it.
Yeah, and I think Bussy kind of got blindsided twice there when he signed originally. It was before the Corpusalo deal or whatever, or the Olmark deal. So they were kind of preparing for Bussy to probably come up and take those reins. And then the Swayman contract held out for so long, and Bussy preparing for the games ahead in the NHL just for less than 48 hours before puck drop of game one, Jeremy Swayman ends up signing a big contract. And that's why, I mean, I don't blame Bussy for the struggles. I mean, that guy got crushed, absolutely crushed with those. I mean, just two things. I mean, if I was him, I'd be like, what the hell? Why did I sign here if this was what was going to happen? I mean, and I can't blame either of these guys if they decide to leave. It's obviously going to be hard because we sat here and watched them develop in the system, and we were like, let's, kind of see what we've done, and let's start to kind of reap those rewards that we've been working so hard towards. I know Jeff Merrick just reported a week ago that the Bruins and DiPietro's camp have been in contract talks, which is great because the goalie market is thin, very, very thin this offseason. I think one of the top players is like Freddie Anderson, which is great, but he's not a goalie that will, light the world on fire. So I definitely see teams wanting to get in on DiPietro or a guy like Hunter Shepard, who is also an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season as well. Yeah, Brandon Bussy is going to be difficult because, I mean, he got crushed this year, and then he got crushed for a third time when he struggled, and then DiPietro just ripped the reins out of his hands and never really looked back. DiPietro has been fantastic this season, and he just kept getting better and better. He started the season top 5 in the league after the first 3 games, and you're kind of like, well, let's see what happens. And now he's number 1. So he never really went down, and he just keeps getting better and better. So, like I said, you can't really blame Bussy or DiPietro if they want to leave. I disagree slightly. I think teams would definitely be interested in a guy like Corpusalo. Like, I feel like a team like the Flyers, where their goaltending situation is just a mess right now. Samuel Ersson is just, he's trying to develop, but obviously being a starter on a not great team and not winning all the time isn't great. And then Fedotov hasn't been good. And then they have Kolosov coming up from the minors. And I mean, Korpisalo could be a serviceable backup, a guy that can kind of just eat starts for the meantime. Also, the Sharks would be a decent landing spot for Korpisalo as well once they want to give the starting spot to Askarov and just have him kind of run with it. And just in case, like maybe there's any injuries or anything, Korpisalo can step up and be a serviceable starter for the meantime. Obviously, probably not for the full season. But man, I feel so bad for these guys because they are both 1A, 1B, 2 fantastic netminders who have done great things for this organization. Last year, Bussy won the Fan Favorite Award. Everybody loves him in Providence. I've not heard a bad thing said about Brandon Bussy. Everybody loves him. They love his character. You see him out doing a ton of stuff for the communities as well. I've never talked to him, but just a great person from the looks of it. And it's going to be difficult if the team ends up having to let him go. But like I said, DiPietro already are in contract talks. Hopefully they get that done. I like that they jumped ahead of this because there will be other teams going after DiPietro in the offseason. I guarantee it. But, signing one of these guys would give you some flexibility with Korpisalo where you can finally let him go and you can allow one of these guys to come up and take one of those spots as well. So I like where the goaltending is at, but it's going to suck seeing one of these guys leave because I guarantee it, if Korpisalo isn't moved, Bussy is not going to want to stay and be an AHL backup, where if he goes to a team like Philadelphia, he could definitely play in the NHL. I would rather have Brandon Bussy in the AHL over a guy like Ivan Fedotov or Alexei Kolosov for sure. So, like I said, it's going to be bittersweet because we want to see these guys succeed in the NHL and we want to see them get the chance because they definitely deserve it. But unfortunately, most likely not going to be with Boston.
Yeah, it sucks. Because I've always, since coming out of Western Michigan, I had him on the show last year, I believe. Really great guy, Brandon Bussy, a hard worker. And what I really like about him is he doesn't show that he's struggling. He's always a very upbeat person. Always there for his teammates. You know, even though the signs of struggles were going through the beginning of the season, it didn't look like it was almost like a water off a duck's back every game. Every game was a reset. Let's go to the next challenge, and we'll go from there. And I kind of like that in his work ethic. So he's a hard worker that does deserve his time, because he's busted his ass from playing in college, getting into a national tournament, and to play really good in the coast for your first, I don't know, handful of games, and then have an injury, and then come up and just play very well to secure a spot at that particular level and gain more attention from the higher NHL management that are obviously looking with Mike Dunham close by, and Bob Essenza always nearby. So, you know, it's gonna suck to lose two great teammates like this, and they're very good friends. They work very hard for each other. They push each other and so on. But unfortunately, it is a business, and I understand that. But you know, if that is true from Jeff Marek, and there's contract talks between Michael DiPietro and his agent, and DiPietro feels comfortable with sticking around and knowing that there's a block at the NHL level right now, and Sweeney and company can convince him to stick around, and we'll try to work and relieve that block, and maybe it might work out. Where, like you said, you can go out and get a guy that like Hunter Shepard, who's got what 2 straight Calder Cups. You know, yeah. That's the kind of goaltender you want to bring in with a winning pedigree and so on, to not only spread amongst the your fellow netminder, but as a team in whole, up and down the bench. So it's going to be interesting on how everything works out and so on. I hope it works out to a point where we can keep them and kind of move on from Korpisalo, and I'm not trying to sound like a dink there at all by just thinking that Korpisalo's trash and so on, because he's not. He's been who we needed him to be. He's got NHL experience, and he's done a decent job on a team that just is not very good, Yeah. So. All right, let's move on to some new additions. Kenny, I know you provided a list of some new players that have stuck out for you, these new additions, whether they come from trade or even from college. So let's hear some names on some players that you've really drawn your attention to.
Yeah, well, to start, a great move by Evan Gold. I know there was something lost in translation, because when Providence wrote their article on this or whatever they wrote their news thing, they failed to mention that this was a loan exchange and not an actual trade. Jake Gaudette came over and just played amazing after amazing. So I think he's played 3 games, has 5 points, put up 2 goals and an assist in the game against Wilkes-Barre Scranton. Just a fantastic addition going into this. I know that he has been he was injured in the game against Wilkes-Barre Scranton, so he's kind of still working his way back. But that's a guy that you need in a playoff run. And another guy that I talk highly of is Chris Ortiz, who completely got overlooked. He did sign a standard player contract on the 20th as well. He was originally a PTO signing, and he's just been huge for this team as well. And then obviously, we talked about it earlier. Tyler Pitlick signed to that PTO and then gets signed to the AHL contract and then ends up earning that NHL contract as well, the 2-way at the end of the season. So good for him. He's been a massive addition to this team. And that's basically what I got there.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Jake Gaudette when I went out to not Columbus, Cleveland, Cleveland, Ohio, to cover the Providence Bruins when they had 2 games out there in late January, early February, and I thought he was a standout player for the Monsters. In 44 games, Gaudette had 11 points. He had In 41 games, he had 1 goal, 5 assists, 6 points. With Providence, in 3 games, he's got 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points. That is just a player to me, when you look at the stat sheet, that just wants to turn around and get so much better. And I think that he's in a really good position to do so with his coaching staff and the opportunity he has here. Another one is just the trade. I know the deadline's been a while back, but Fraser Minton continues to be a solid player for the Providence Bruins. Still getting adjusted to his new surroundings and so on. But I think he's done pretty good. In 9 games played, he's got 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points. I really like the way that this player gets to the net and has the finish ability. And I think that that's something that you want to keep down in Providence right now, maybe even next season for the full year to work on that, because he's an interesting player when you can see him coming through, cutting through the layers of ice to get to the net, and how you could just find those players to facilitate and thread the needle to him on a regular basis. And that guy's going to score goals. You know, he's a big body, and from what I've seen so far in Providence, he doesn't take any shit either. I mean, he's not dropping the gloves and beating ass and so on. But, you know, when he's in the scrums, he's not, you know, shying away and you know, skating back to the bench. He's giving it right back, which you like to see.
Yeah, I mean, Fraser Minton, I can't believe I left that guy off the list. He has been huge for Providence. 200-foot player, plays in all situations. He's on the first power play and the first penalty kill as well. He's just so smart. So smart. It's unbelievable how easy he makes it for his teammates to find him in front of the net. In the most heavily guarded area, the fact that he was able to score 3 goals against Springfield, just standing right at the top of the crease, just giving Merkulov and Patra and having so many playmakers down there, just the easiest passes of all time. Merkulov is great at you know, his vision in elite, but you can see it in the goal where he's like, you know, he kind of hesitates because it's like, I cannot believe that this is so open. And Fraser Minton does a great job. He's got a quick stick in front of the net. So even if you are standing in front of him, if there's any pass that gets through, he's going to end up burying that shot. And you can never, ever, when I'm watching Fraser Minton, you can never turn your brain off for a second. You can never hesitate because Fraser Minton always looks like he's making the right play. So when that happens, right, you puck watch just for a second, and that puck's in the back of your net. And that's what I like about Fraser Minton. He, I mean, it was unbelievable when, you know, Providence went to go play Toronto, and the whole broadcast was just talking about how they were so upset that Minton was leaving Toronto, and everybody that I have heard from has talked so highly of Fraser Minton. Even when he was traded, you know, I post the goals of him getting the hat trick. My most viewed video is Fraser Minton scoring that 3rd goal, and it was posted by Bruins fans like, "Oh my God, I can't believe we got this kid in a trade." And the Maple Leafs reposting, all the Maple Leafs fans reposting saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe we gave this kid away in a trade." So both ways, it was great, and I'm so excited to see Fraser Minton, and this center core is looking pretty good with Patra and Minton going into the future. So very excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, why don't we talk about the playoff outlook, or how I would say, if the Calder Cup playoffs started today, the Providence Bruins would face the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. The Phantoms currently occupy the 5th place in the Atlantic Division with 73 points, but have yet to secure a postseason berth. With 6 games remaining for the Philadelphia Flyers affiliate, Providence is 3-0-1 versus Phantoms in 4 games this season, which is very encouraging to start this upcoming first round. And obviously hoping that the Providence Bruins can stay in this position. Like we said before, you just don't want, I don't want to see them get in the 1 and 2. And I know that's frustrating to hear, but I really don't want the bye week again. But there are games remaining. There's 7 games remaining. So if the Bruins win, it is what it is. You're still going to climb a little bit higher, but I'm just really deathly afraid of that bye week, to be honest with you. So basically, what are your thoughts on if there was a matchup between Lehigh Valley and Providence? What do you think the outcome would be in the best of 3 series?
Well, I mean, I didn't know the record off the top of my head, but just watching every second of Providence Bruins action this season, which I'm very proud to say, they just the games that they play against the Phantoms are just not really one-sided, but they just look like they just commanded so much better against the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. The one game that they lost, they played a 55-minute game and took 5 minutes off and ended up losing the game in overtime, which is unfortunate, but it also makes, the record a little bit better when you think, wow, this probably should be 4-0-0 this season. So it would be a very exciting team to play. I know that they have a few players that would also be returning from the NHL to come play. I know they just got Jet Lachenko, who's a huge asset for them going forward. It's difficult to speak on it because both teams are going to be drastically different by the time the playoffs roll around. This is going to be a completely different team than the team that we've seen the last 4 times. Like I write the articles weekly and I say the same thing where it's like, the last time the P Bruins played Utica, Ian Mitchell scored 2 goals and Patrick Brown scored a goal and Vinny Lettieri scored a goal. Actually, none of those guys are with us right now. So we're going to have to have somebody else step up. So it's funny to just look back at all these games, and it's hard for the regular season to actually gauge how well the team's going to play, especially when the teams are just so different, especially this late in the season when guys are getting a bunch of college kids in as well. So it's going to be a fun series. I hope they win in 2. I think this would be a manageable series to start out with. This is a series that I like to kind of get your legs under you. And then hopefully you go play a team like Wilkes-Barre Scranton, who I think Providence also plays very well against. And then you kind of just have that running start and you go. And then my hope also would be Springfield is a very good team, and they have a bunch of players who are also going to be sent down to the AHL for the playoffs.